Hi! Thank you so much for joining me back on John's Chaotic Healing. As usual, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Today is Sunday, which means it's one of my favorite days of the week. It is Autistic Info Dump, which means we're going to briefly cover my latest stims that I've been doing, and then we're going to dive into this week's educational info dumpy content, which today I think is going to be hilarious. I want to make this video as concise as possible because I'm a rambler. Latest stims are definitely slime. I've been excessively playing with it. A friend from the previous video that I talked about, the one who I was with, and we had done something together. I can't remember what. We were waiting for her car and I said something rude, and she she got interested in the slime, and so I gave it to her in the car when we're heading to pick up her company's car, and she grabs it, instantaneously squeezes it, is like, nope, chucks it right back. I thought it was so funny. But I love the texture. I'm currently obsessed with it. It gives me like Halloween vibes. That's one of my favorite stims. The other one is just playing with my hands a little bit more. I've been flapping them like this. And it's really nice. And I've been trying to just express it a little bit more. I've also been singing some not great songs, not mentally healthy songs that I will leave for another video maybe, because I don't want to be triggering for those that want to be happy and excited about autistic info here. Today's info topic is Freud. I love Freud. Freud is such a character to me. For those that don't know, Sigmund Freud is, I believe, a neurologist who lived from the late 1800s to, I believe it was the early 1900s, back before the term psychologist was recognized. And he was very interested in the brain. And what happened was he was kind of a bit of a lunatic. I'm not gonna lie. And most of the research that we have from that time period came from trying to disprove a lot of his theory. And some of it was kind of proven because he was on the right track in the sense that he believed that we did have unconscious mechanisms, which is part of how the cognitive revolution in history came about. That's for a whole nother info topic. That's not for today. But that is how we learned a lot about the brain, and how we learned about biases, and how we learned about how our brain does things without us realizing it consciously. And so he was quite a character. I'm not gonna lie. He did do some weird things, such as doing drugs during lectures. So if you're kind of like a lunatic genius like Freud, and you're doing drugs during lectures, I'm surprised he didn't get fired from that, but I guess that was just the times. For context, he also put himself as a bit of a case study on essentially the entirety of his life. And a lot of his theories are nicknamed as mommy and daddy issues, essentially. And that's for a whole nother topic on its own. But today we're going to be talking about what I think is one of the most absurd theories of his, which is his theory on gender development. And so we're going to dive into it. And I want to preface this is that it doesn't take into account transgender identities. It's very cis-normative of a theory. It's very patriarchal of a theory, because some of the themes that you'll notice in his theory is that the terms are symbolic in a way, or the body parts rather, are symbolic of the rights that it equated with at the time. Because at the time when these were created, only men could vote, only men could get credit cards, only men could have jobs, kind of thing. Women were just housekeepers and cookers, essentially. Cook and clean in the kitchen kind of thing. And that wasn't really what we have today. I'm not going to say it's right, but that was the way that his mind organized things, and that was more common of the way of the times. And I also want to preface that all of this theory comes in the unconscious, meaning it's not something they're actively aware that they're thinking of. Okay, so this theory occurs in ages 3 through 6, which is also known in his psychosexual development as the phallic stage. And yeah, phallic. Freud was very sexual in his theories. Yeah. All right, so the process for both boys and girls start out by identifying their gender with the mother. And then we're going to dive into boys first, because I think boys is hilarious. And then girls just gets even more chaotic. So then boys at around this age period realize that they have a penis, which is, whoa, that's powerful, that's magical, woo, they can do so much with it, penises, whoa. But also they realize that not everyone has a penis. Well, what happened to other people's penises? They must have had it cut off. But who cut it off? Mom has hers cut off, so it must have been my father. My father must have cut it off. Well, then they have what's called the occipital complex, where they try to protect the mother and have this desire to quite literally kill the mother. But they also have a fear of the father that the father's going to find out about this desire and rip off and castrate him, the boy. So there's this term called castration anxiety. And so the solution is transferring their identity to the father and identifying as a boy. I'm going to let that sink in. I'm going to be real. That's not all the theories, but that is certainly a theory. It's still taught today. I mean, I learned about it. All right. The second, the process for girls, which also occurs in the unconscious and is similar but different. But again, girls start out with identifying with the mother in gender-wise, but then these girls around this age realize they don't have a penis. But then they have what's called the Electra conflict, which is to protect the father and a desire to kill the mother. So it's kind of the opposite. But then they have a fear of the mother. So then they re-identify with the mother as a result of like a solution. Because there's this thing, which actually is scientifically true, that girls can go through a phase of wanting a penis. Where this theory came from. And so I'm gonna let that sink in. It's quite a theory. I'm not saying it's right. I found that quite hilarious the first time I heard it. I thought it was the most unhinged Freud moment. But yeah, that is Freud for you. That is Sigmund Freud. And so you can see now why we call it daddy issues. So with that, I'm going to end it here. And I'll let you sit on that unique piece of information that I learned in my psychology classes. And I will let you think about how you discovered your gender and create your own theory around that. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you listening to my exciting pieces of information, because this is truly one of my favorite parts of the week. And I thank you so much for existing. I truly do mean that. And please know that the world is genuinely so much better because you are in it.